Worship is one's ultimate submission and surrender to Allah, whereby his entire life belongs to Allah. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. May the peace and blessings of Allah be on His last messenger, Muhammad. Praise be to Allah, who sent down the criterion upon His servants, as a warning as well as glad tidings to the whole world. He, Allah, who has complete rule over the heavens and the earth, and created all things in perfection. He created man from a drop of fluid in order to test him. He gave man hearing and sight, and guided man to the right way, be he grateful or be he ungrateful. Hence, one who shows gratitude will be rewarded with paradise, silk garments, pleasure, and great dominion. And one who is ungrateful and disbelieves will neither find a protector besides Allah nor a helper. We thank Allah, blessed and exalted is He, and seek refuge in the light of His honorable face from the day whose tribulation will be widespread. We bear witness to La ilaha illallah, that there is no deity but Allah, a testimony that turns darkness into light, gives life to the hearts, and brings relief to the strain one might be feeling in his heart. We also bear witness that our Master Muhammad is a servant of Allah, sent as a warner and bringer of good tidings, a caller to Allah by His permission, a bright and shining lamp. Today we would like to look at a verse in the 7th chapter of the Quran, Al-A'raf, the heights. This noble verse conveys the words of the tribe, an ancient tribe, Al-Ad. They stated these words at the peak of their tyranny, their obstinacy, and their denial towards their messengerhood that Allah had sent them. They were mocking and responding the call of their messengerhood, who was inviting them to the path of Allah. They said, "Have you come to tell us that we should worship Allah alone and leave what our fathers have worshipped? Then bring us what you promise, if you should be the truthful." These people were annoyed to the request of their messenger, who was asking them to forsake the obedience of others contrary to Allah. They felt as if they were being called to an evil which they could barely stand, as they were accustomed to worshipping and obeying multiple lords that they had inherited from their forefathers. They failed to remember that Allah was the creator of the heavens and the earth, as well as the ruler, the sustainer, and the governor who deserved to be worshipped and obeyed exclusively by all of His creation. Instead, what they wanted to do was to obey their own customs, traditions, desires, and whims, actually imposed by people who are just like them. They basically were saying, we want to obey our own selves. We don't want to obey Allah. Thus they blocked themselves from real knowledge, light, and blessings. This was all a result of their fear of breaking of ties, of inherent customs and notions, the ones upon which they built their political, economic, and social systems. Their leaders also feared for the privileges and comforts that came with authority and control which they had on earth, not realizing that Allah's messenger was calling them to the best in this world as well as the hereafter. One might say, why does this argument between Hud and his people so long ago concern us today? Hud was admonishing his people as they disbelieved in Allah and they worshipped deities contrary to Allah. One might say, why are you speaking to us of this when we are a nation of Muhammad? We neither worship nor prostrate to idols in our lives, nor do we worship anyone other than Allah. To this we say, let us first understand the true meaning of worship. What does it mean to worship Allah alone? Worship is the act of complete submission and surrender to that which Allah likes and is pleased with, carried out on our part with pleasure, satisfaction, and love for Allah. Some of the scholars have also defined it as an all-inclusive term, for that all that Allah loves of external and internal sayings and actions of a person. Thus, worshipping deities contrary to Allah does not only mean prostrating to them and performing certain rites of worship, like fasting or going to Hajj or giving zakah. Rather, it also means to follow, obey, and submit to anyone contrary to Allah. It also means to give them the right to legislate. So if you give anyone, including your own self, absolute authority in your own life, then you are worshiping that person, or you're worshiping yourself. If you do something because your culture or tradition allows you to do something, while Allah is not happy with this, then you are worshiping your culture and tradition instead of Allah. The Messenger, may Allah's peace and blessings be on him, clarified this meaning when Adi, the son of Hatim, heard the Quranic verse. Allah's Messenger was reciting this verse. They have taken their scholars and monks as lords and worship besides Allah. When Adi heard this, he said to the Messenger, O Messenger of Allah, we did not take them as lords in worship. Adi was meaning they did not bow and prostrate to their scholars and monks. They did not offer sacrifices in their names. This was true, but the Messenger wanted to clarify this. So the Messenger of Allah said, have they not prohibited what Allah permitted for you? And had they not permitted what Allah prohibited from you? Adi thought and said, that's true, yes. The Messenger then replied, then that is your worship of them. So based on this, the true meaning of worship becomes evident and must be comprehended by all who wish to be submissive and surrendering servants to Allah the Almighty. Worship is one's ultimate submission and surrender to Allah, whereby his entire life belongs to Allah. This submission must encompass not only the personal aspects of an individual, but also the economic, political, social, and cultural aspects of the person. Allah declares in the Quran, say, indeed my prayer, my rites of sacrifice, my life, my death, are for Allah, Lord of the worlds. No partner has He. And this I have been commanded, and I am the first among you of the Muslims. A servant who has submitted himself to Allah is keen to ensure that every step and deed of his conforms to that which Allah likes and is pleased with. He must also review his prior decisions and actions to see if they have been done in a manner that pleases Allah. If not, it would be considered as an association of partners with Allah. So you see, the one you obey is the one you worship. The one you hate to displease above all others is the one you worship. So honestly consider, who is the one that most people hate to displease above all? It is their own selves, their own desires. We can add to this their own customs and traditions. If pleasing and conforming to these things is more liked by a person than pleasing Allah, then they are not worshiping Allah. They are worshiping themselves or their own culture. A person worships his whims and desires when his actions and deeds are solely based on what he wants, regardless of whether they are approved by Allah or not. Allah may command us to do something, and we may decide to do something else that is more desirable to us, or easier for us, or it seems like a better option in our opinion. In this case, who is the one that is being followed and obeyed? Is it Allah, exalted is He, or is it one's desires and whims? Indeed, it is the desires and whims that are being followed, being worshipped. Anything or anyone which one chooses to follow and obey is classified as an entity that is being worshipped. Therefore, a servant must be keen to satisfy and obey his master in the manner willed by his master, rather than the manner that he wishes. Allah the Almighty is the creator, the sustainer, the king, the ruler, and the governor of all things. He is the master who ought to be obeyed at all times. No one has the right to follow or obey anyone contrary to Allah. And by the same token, no one has a right to be followed or to be obeyed contrary to Allah. If we take a look at the reality in this day, we observe that people do not submit to Allah except in certain rituals of worship. Every aspect of humanity's lives is derived from a source contrary to Allah, be it their way of dressing, eating, or drinking, their personal manners and affairs, their joys and concerns, their ethics and dealings, as well as every other aspect of their daily lives. Nevertheless, they will seem to think that they have submitted and surrendered to Allah. However, this is not the case. Allah the Almighty has revealed His law and system to be followed and distinguished between the permitted and prohibited matters relating to every aspect of our lives, regardless of whether they are large or small. One who does not follow Allah's law and system for life has strayed far from the religion of Allah as well. In addition, he is the same as those who arrogantly and obstinately declared, "Have you come to tell us that we should worship Allah alone and leave what our fathers have worshipped?" Let each and every one of us review our daily life and the reality of our state. Does each person truly worship Allah alone, exclusively follow His law, and act upon every matter which pleases Allah, regardless of whether they are in accordance with their desires or not? Similarly, is Allah the exclusive ruler and legislator in their lives? If this is the case, then they are truly worshiping Allah alone. If not, they need to correct and save themselves before they run out of time. Life is short and fleeting, and the judgment of Allah will inevitably approach us, and there will be no escape from it. One can choose to follow, surrender, and submit to Allah, and their reward will be victory, success, and honor and everlasting bliss. Or they can choose to follow others contrary to Allah, and their consequence will be loss in this world as well as the hereafter. May Allah protect us from this. Has not the time come that we truly follow and obey Allah as He deserves? And our last prayer is in praise of Allah. All praise is due to Him. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.